Hello, and everybody, and welcome to Save and Submit podcast. My name is Isla.
And my name's Anastacia, and today we will be talking about TOK, otherwise known as theory of knowledge.
So, Anastacia, what will we be discussing about theory of knowledge today?
Well, for TOK, first we're going to start off with what it is, because I think that's the most daunting question to a lot of people coming into DP. And we're going to talk about the AOKs, and we're going to go a bit personal, which one's your favorite, and also why it's your favorite. And I think finally we'll talk about the TOK essay and the TOK exhibition and how to make sure you're picking the right topic and picking the right question and all the things.
Yep, sounds good.
So, for starters, Iva, to you, what is TOK?
To me, TOK is it's quite difficult to put into words what is TOK because TOK is a lot of different ideas, and you're just asking, how do we know this and why do we know this?
Mm-hmm.
Because because we look at the different areas of knowledge, which is art, sciences, maths, history, maybe one more.
It's human science
Not
and natural
human
science.
sciences, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You, you kind of have to wonder, for example, art. How do we know what the artist's intention was? And you kind of have to think, how do we know what we know? Which is probably the best way to put TOK. Because how do we know that? I don't know. That the sky is blue. We're just told the sky is blue, and we just kind of go, yeah, it looks blue.
Mm-hmm.
So we just kind of like, why do we know it's blue? Well, there's
Mm-hmm.
science behind it. Well, not, but it's all reflections. You're just kind of going not off what you know, but you're kind of looking deeper into why you know these topics.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think it's definitely how do we know what we know? I think to me it's also thinking about thinking. It's metacognition. It's just understanding like how we think and how we interpret different things such as bias or unreliable sources or reliable sources for that matter, and just understanding how those things can influence our perception of the world around us and how thinking about thinking and metacognition just influences our daily life. Although we might not think about thinking quite often, um, but just TOK allows us to enhance that and just allows for us to really understand our world through a more nuanced lens, in my opinion. And I think that just in general, TOK is very mind opening. Like, I in my classes thought about things that before I would have never thought of or learned about experiments I never knew about, and then it really just changed my perception of a lot of things.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of TOK makes you think more rather than less.
Hmm.
Because if you're not thinking enough in TOK, are you really doing TOK? Right.
Exactly.
So, what is your favorite AOK?
I kind of have two favorites, and actually no, maybe even three. I have three favorites. Um,
As you can tell, she really likes TOK.
yeah, yeah, I do. Um,
You loved
but
it in grade 10.
in grade 11.
In grade 11, sorry.
I did, and I still do. I still really enjoy TRK. But my favorites were probably I really enjoyed art because art wasn't solely about fine arts. You could talk about poetry, you could talk about any kind of literature you wanted. You could talk about music. You can even talk about architecture. So I really enjoyed like the way it was so broad because when I first heard of it, I thought it was like, oh, okay, we're going to be focusing on fine art and paintings and sculptures and anything that was like um handmade, for example. But then you realize you can do so much more with art, so that's why I really liked it. I also really enjoyed history because much like you, Isla, we're history nerds. We take history kind of in
Mm.
our blood to like it at this point. um
Yeah, especially seeing as I'm deciding to go into it, so
yeah, exactly. I mean I'm going into criminology, that's going to have some history here and there.
down to.
So exactly. And because I'm going into criminology, that brings me to my third one, human sciences. I love understanding people and why we do things and like just what we owe not only to ourselves but what we owe to each other. And I think that just it's really amazing to learn about people. So that's why I really enjoyed like human sciences because as humans, I believe we are such complex beings
We are.
and like I don't think no amount of studying humans will ever allow us to fully understand ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. Because as you said, the more complex not just people, but as the more complex organisms are,
Mhm.
the more curious people tend to be because we want to know as much as we can about them,
Mhm.
and we never really question it.
Exactly. So I think that TOK, especially in human sciences, allows you to really question people and like not only people but the ways of um like I'm trying to think of the words, the ways of experiencing humans, and it really like makes you question especially in psychology the ethics of humans and getting some of the like much needed information we know today. So that brings me to you, Isla. What are your favorite AOKs?
Like you, I really like art and history because they're like my only two favorites. I don't have any others.
Mm-hmm.
I really like art because I do like how broad it is and I'm able to talk about topics that I'm really interested in. Because I very distinctly remember I have discussed like Star Wars in
Mm-hmm.
TOK at one point, which was brilliant. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to discuss my own music that I really enjoy, and that kind of lets me
The
be
Beatles.
more interested in TOK because you're able to actually talk about topics that you're personally interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also chose history because, as I mentioned, I love history, as we've mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of allows you to kind of look deeper into topics because obviously history has a lot of bias, has lots of interpretations, and all these interpretations, bias, you kind of have to look deeper and actually find deeper rooted evidence into finding, oh, so even though like we've been told this aspect, but it's only one viewpoint, and we can't actually see everything until we look at all the evidence, at the proof, and you kind of analyze, kind of going, well, one side says this, in reality, this is what the other side said. So the likelihood is that neither side are really telling the truth and trying to make
Mm-hmm.
themselves look better. And that's the kind
Exactly.
of beauty of like history and TOK, because not only are you questioning what you know, you're trying to
Mhm.
deeper your understanding on what you now know.
Exactly. So then I think that brings us to the final parts of TOK. Well, the final part of grade 11 TOK and the final part of grade 12 TOK, that being
Yes.
the exhibition and the essay. So let's start with the exhibition, shall we?
Yeah. So the exhibition, pretty much, you get given a quest. You get given a set of questions, and you kind of go, I will choose question three. And then to answer this question, you need to pick three objects, and then you analyze it and how it relates to the question. So, for example, regarding my question, I looked at a leach tank, a steam train, and an old map. Because I was looking more at like how has our understanding of like how's our understanding changed throughout the years and how's that influenced our lives.
Mhm.
So these images kind of help, or these like objects have helped me not only deepen my understanding, but actually think, oh, I can actually see all these different aspects all around us. And you
Mhm.
can kind of go, now what else? What else can we do to kind of deepen our interests, our understandings of these topics?
Yeah. I think that's exactly what it is. It's all about just like deepening your understanding. And I think it is almost kind of like the essay, just in a way, it's a bit shorter and you present it. In my
Yeah.
opinion, they are quite similar. Um, but I think that for the exhibition, I think it is just like a small opportunity to really deepen your own like understanding of your passions almost
Yeah.
and your just interests. Mm-hmm.
Because along with the exhibition, you present it to everyone. So it's really interesting to kind of see how everyone else interprets the
Mm-hmm.
question and what they choose as their objects. Because more often than not, no object, two objects are the same.
Exactly. I don't
So
think
that's
I've
kind of
ever
really
seen,
interesting.
yeah, I don't think I've ever seen two people pick the same object.
Or
Like,
if
for
they do,
example, in
it's
our
really
cohort.
boring.
Exactly. So
Because,
that actually brings me to a separate question. How
yeah,
do you pick your objects for the TOK exhibition?
I'm gonna be dead honest. I just
Mm-hmm.
like I just look at the question kind of you analyze the question, very important.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of go, what can you get from this? And then I go into then I just kind of stare at the wall for about 10 minutes, kind of going,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that could work. Once you get one
The
object,
leech
you can
tank.
kind of branch out. So I'm pretty sure my
Yeah.
first object was the leech tank. Okay, so I have
Mm-hmm.
the leech tank. Where can I go from this? Okay, I can look
Mm-hmm.
at, I don't know. Let's have a look at steam trains because that may be interesting. There's lots of different
Yeah.
interpretations because we're now fast trains. And then I
Mm-hmm.
kind of went, but how did people see the word before? Because that's interpretation. And you kind of see all these ideas and you see how they all kind of link together regarding this one question.
Yeah.
How about you?
Exactly. Um, I think that for picking an object, first of all, for objects in general, they have to be actual things
Oh,
that
yeah,
you can touch. Like
I agree.
they,
I feel like you can have physical objects you can touch, but if you have a picture, that could count of like
yeah,
a family member, and that's still an object because you can
yeah.
still kind of
It
touch
has
it.
to be a real thing essentially. It can't be a
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah, you can't be like, oh, what about, I don't know, a superpower that's in
Exactly.
real, that's not, that's a concept of an
Exactly.
idea.
So for me, I had to think about that and then I had to really go through the process of deciding which ones were concepts and which ones were more so actual things.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what I did for my exhibition. It was quite a while ago. I'm surprised you remember. Um,
I have a poster board in my room. I
ah,
walk past it every day.
I see. So that's how. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just a matter of really analyzing the question, as you said. And as HL Lit students, we do a lot of analysis of questions and also history students.
Yeah.
Um, we do a lot of analysis of questions. So I think that is something we're already quite used to. Um, but I think that another thing is just really making sure it's something that you're passionate about. You don't want to be stuck talking about something you don't care about for around 900 words.
Yeah, 900-ish.
Yeah. So I really think that you should just understand what you want to do first, like what AOKs you want to focus on, and then pick something that you're genuinely interested in. Because, for example, if I were to talk about something to do with human sciences, I would be extremely passionate. But if I were to talk about something to do with math, I don't think I would be nearly as passionate as, for example, even history or the arts.
Yeah. But I agree, it's about depending on what you're passionate about. Because we
Mm-hmm.
have friends who have talked about math and the more like chemical side of science. But that's something that they're interested in, meaning that they can talk more and more about the topic.
Yeah, exactly. So that
Oh,
brings
to
us to
The
The
TOK
essay.
essay, a very fun 1,600 word essay.
It is amazing.
The TOK essay, much like the exhibition, is that you get given a question sent by the IB and you kind of go, I want to do question 5. I want to do question 6. Each of these
Mm-hmm.
topics are in some relation to one AOK, and they need to
Yeah,
either pick another, and they need to pick another AOK to help compare, contrast,
exactly.
little thingy.
Yes.
So my essay was discussing history,
Mm-hmm.
and then my other, no, my, it was discussing art, but I chose history as like another, or
Yeah.
something along those lines. And I still
Yes.
remember what I chose because I decided
Mm-hmm.
to be very English and I chose a Beatles song
Mm-hmm.
because I remember because it was discussing how interpretation influences people's like ideas or opinions on kind of your knowledge because
Yeah,
everything links back to knowledge.
exactly. Everything does.
So yeah, so I chose a Beatles song, I Am the Walrus, because it's a song that's not meant to have any meaning, but people have still
Mm-hmm.
interpreted it to have meaning.
Yeah.
So the TOK essay is about like thinking outside the box almost, because you're meant to not only be questioning yourself, but you're meant to be questioning others.
Yeah,
And
and you're meant to be questioning everything, really.
yeah, and that's the beauty of it in a way, because while
Exactly.
everything's up in the air, you can still kind of go, well, actually, and be really annoying
Mm-hmm.
to like everyone who's
Yeah,
gonna fight back. And I'm like, well, actually,
exactly. So you said that you did art and history.
yeah. What about
What was
you?
your Yeah, I also did art and history. Um, my question was about doubt and if it is central to knowledge. And if I remember correctly, I believe I did for history, I did the MIT Belmont archive from the Cold War,
Yeah,
and it was like this psychological operations data to do with it, because personally I am very interested in like the Cold War, and also like psychological things to do with history. For example, in my TOK exhibition, I believe I did MK Ultra, which was another psychological CIA operation.
yeah,
um and I think that that is also like just very like I want to say close to me, but it is just something I'm very interested in. And like I said before, it's all about picking something you're interested in. And for the arts, I did um Marina, I'm forgetting her last name,
I believe in you.
Abramovich. Abramovich, I think that's her last name. Rhythm Zero. It's a performance, like a ballet performance, and it was like an art piece where the audience used objects on her body, and it like shows doubt as like a creative force. And I think that that was just like something really moving, and like something really beautiful. And then I also did for arts again, Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. um and I think that it was just a very like doubtful album, because it was like a lot of internal doubt.
Yeah,
And I think that just picking things that you are really passionate about is simply the way to like go through the essay, because it's a long essay, don't get me wrong. It
yeah.
just needs that like personal touch, because you also have that personal aspect of the essay. You have to explain why you chose these things and how they're personal to you.
I agree because I've also because mine was about interpretation and perspective. I also discussed the Vietnam War and the car Franz Ferdinand was shot in because these objects had a lot of different interpretations and perspectives depending on where you were. Because obviously Franz Ferdinand was the Archduke of Austria-Hungary and he was shot and killed by the Black Hand
Hmm.
in Serbia. This whole big thing had kicked off World War One.
The
But
July
depending on the
crisis.
perspective, you were looking at, Serbia saw him as coming in, trying to take more control and power over Serbia, while in
Mhm.
reality he was there to kind of help figure out a way to give them more like independence away from these other countries. So that was a
Yeah,
very big one. And then the Vietnam War, as we may or may not be aware of, absolutely wild depending on the perspective you were and where you were. In
yeah,
Vietnam, it was wild. America, it was wild. Protest everywhere. So actually looking into it was quite interesting and kind of gaining a better understanding of the events that occurred.
exactly. So I believe that takes us to the end of our topics.
Yeah,
So until next time.
yeah. If you do to your cage, pick something that you're interested in and actually think to yourself, why does it matter and how do we know what we know?
All about metacognition.
Boom. Later, this was Save and Submit. I'm Isla.
And I'm Anastacia.
Peace.